Welcome to Titan HST's Business Continuity Today, hosted by Todd DeVoe, where planning meets reality.
Good morning, good afternoon, depending, I guess, is where you're at. And my name is Todd DeVoe. I'm the host of Titan HST's Business Continuity Today. And, I want to get into a little bit of, resolve to be ready is the theme for January. And what does that really mean? And so if you take a look at what's going on in the news these days, a lot of stuff was talking about the economy. Right now, the government is looking at the debt ceiling again and whether they should raise it or not. And, you have some other uncertainties that are happening around the world. Ukraine is going into its 11th month of war. You have tensions from China and Taiwan, and other things happening. So what does that mean? Like, how do you become and make your organization a resilient organization? That's like the $1 million question that's out there right now. And so let's define what resilient truly is, right? And we talked about this in the past, but it's very abstract, right? The idea for a company to be able to withstand stresses, bounce back from those stresses, and in some cases can actually become better. And if you've heard anything I've written or talked about in the past, really get into Nicholas Taleb and his concept of anti-fragile. And so the idea here is what you want to make your organization is moving from an organization that is reactive in response to an event, right, to becoming a resilient organization, which means that you're prepared for and ready to respond to, right? So you're no longer reactive. You have plans in place, and business continuity is kind of what we do, right? And then you go to move to the other side of it is where you become a robust and anti-fragile organization. It's when you start to have, when these stresses come onto you, you have positioned yourself to be ready and better and stronger because of the stresses that are put on there. And when somebody's trying to explain what anti-fragile truly means, I like this idea here. Is like when you drop your cell phone, right? If your cell phone drops and breaks, obviously it's not ready, it's not prepared, it's not resilient. But if you have the new Gorilla Glass on it or whatever it's called, whatever their term, depends on what cell phone you're using, and you drop it and it doesn't break, right? That's a resilient cell phone. Now, if you drop the phone and it charges the battery back to 100%, well, that's an anti-fragile phone, right? It becomes stronger from that stresses that's been put on it. And that's kind of what we're talking about. So our organizations right now in this economy have been put on a lot of stresses, right? We're moving from, COVID, which really we saw organizations that could not last through that stress. And then those that did, we're resilient, right? And we changed, right? We went from the traditional going into the office to more remote work. And even the government, the non-flexible behemoth that it can become, was flexible enough to say, hey, we're going to have people working from home. And now they're having some issues. Washington, D.C. specifically, the city of, is asking for the federal government to force employees back into the office because the businesses that are around those office buildings are feeling some stresses from not having as many people around, right? So there are trade-offs and things like that occur when you're making these decisions. So kind of put that in the back of your mind. But so creating that flexibility of having people working from home, working remotely, and the new economy, if you will, is now becoming based upon that ability to recruit and retain good employees that are working from remote because going into the office, it seems to be something that's not desirable, I suppose, for lack of a better term. And the other side of it too is it's also very expensive to run real estate, right? So those are some of those flexibility things that you have to kind of think about, right? Put those into your plan. So the business environment is becoming way more dynamic and way more unpredictable. And this is a result of several enduring forces that are stressing and stretching our business systems, right? So technology is another one of those great evolutions that we're here today talking through technology that is helping businesses run. Well, in some cases, it's also the Achilles heel, right? And we saw that Achilles heel occur with some of the cyber attacks that occurred over the years over in other nations, and even here in the United States when we had the malware attack on the gas line. And so what does that mean? Like, are your company, what are you guys doing specifically to prepare your organization for that cyber attack? And can you make it so when, if you do get hit, and I have to say that in that way, right? The conversation is, oh, it may never happen. The likelihood that you've been hit and the likelihood that you have some sort of malware or bug on your computer right now is probably high, and this is why you're seeing Apple and other companies doing fixing patches all the time, right? So there are updates because they're staying ahead of this issue, right? So as a smaller organization, you have to stay ahead of the issue as well, and making sure that your organization is doing all the updates. And so putting that policy in place. So for instance, with Apple, for instance, our policy is that we will every time a new patch comes through, a new update comes through, everybody will download that, right? And so to keep that up to date. So doing that, having that policy in place where all your employees have to do their downloads or have somebody in charge of going to each of those computers. It's kind of harder now with remote work, but having somebody in charge to make sure that all of those updates are done on the devices that are touching your infrastructure is critical. And that's where you're being proactive, not reactive. So you're not reacting to a malware attack, you're being proactive to stop that happening. And those are some of those decisions that you really have to make. When it comes to your personnel, again, choosing the right personnel is critical and looking at long term. So there was a trend there for a while, and we're seeing this kind of change to where people are hiring temporary workers, something to come in just for a project management for short term. Having those longer term employees is actually better for the organization's continuity of operations. And so that is a best practice that is out there now, where having that occur instead of hiring short-term employees for projects and whatnot. And then, and understanding on one side that you're saving on the employee benefits and money spent on them, but on the long term, the continuity of operations, the ability to have that long-term thought process that's happening within your organization goes away. So that is the other best practice that we're seeing now too. The other thing too is challenge of measuring and managing what resilience is. Traditional management approaches have several important limitations that make measuring and achieving resilience difficult. So companies have designed predominantly to maximize shareholder value, right? And the dividends from the stocks. So very few companies are attempting to measure resilience because it's really kind of abstract in some ways. So companies and shareholders are often focused on maximizing their short-term returns. So resilience actually requires that multiple time schedule or time scale perspective, right? So foregoing that certain amount of efficiency or performance today, like I was talking about by hiring that person for that project for that long term, is critical. And so companies have to maintain and focus on creating and executing the stable plans, right? Which works well with casual relationships and whatnot, but they have to be predictable, and you have to make it so that, I don't want to say they're rigid, but making it so that these plans aren't so flexible that they just keep changing when the wind blows, right? So you have to have plans that are structured and ready to go and predictable when you implement them, and share those plans with the organization and the people that you're working with. And also resiliency deals with the unknown change of unpredictability and a probability and the consequences. And this is why you have to have professionals sitting in the room with business continuity experience and also with emergency management experience. And so these are some of those things that you need to be really focusing on specifically to create that resilient organization. Now, on the side note, we're looking, like I said, at the economy having some issues. And it depends on who you read and who you talk to, whether we're heading into a recession or not. If you take a look at just basic economic cycles. We will be in a recession at some point, whether it's this year or next year or whatnot. But so planning for the recession kind of recession proofs your organization. And that's the other part about being resilient and being robust and being anti-fragile. Because if you can weigh out and you can work out through a downturn in the economy, a recession, you end up becoming better, more stable, an organization that people look to for answers, and you become anti-fragile. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for spending time with me this morning and with the Titan HST team. And one of the things that we do at Titan HST to really help out with making sure that your organization is prepared for anything that could happen is we have a repository that you can put anything into our system and have it at your fingertips. Even when the internet goes down, right, you can still access those documents throughout your organization and still share and be on the same page when a disaster does occur. So if you want to check out what we have, go to titanhst.com, right? Put in there that you found, book a demo, say that you found us here at Business Continuity Today, and you'll receive 30 days free trial of the Titan HST software. And yeah, I think check it out, kick the tires a little bit, see what's going on, see how you can implement and use Titan HST in your business continuity and disaster preparedness planning. So until next week, stay safe, stay hydrated.